Welcome to the second video in our three-part series about Microsoft Project's baseline functionality. In the previous video, we took a schedule which had been prepared to the point that the project manager and his team were ready to commit to it as the baseline which their performance would be measured against. Fast forward a couple of months into the project, and things have now moved on. Some tasks are finished ahead of schedule, others behind, and as a result we've got variances in the schedule. To see these variances, we can use the tracking Gantt, which shows a Gantt chart with two bars for each task. The top bar shows the current dates for that task, whereas the black bar below shows the baseline dates, and this is a really useful view to use when looking at project performance. And we can see in this example that we're currently scheduled to finish the project ahead of time. In other words, we've got a positive variance. However, at this stage the customer has raised a change request to accommodate some additional requirements and they've agreed to fund it. So the overall effect on the project is to increase the duration of the Module B build, this task here, by 10 days, changing the duration from 15 days to 25 days. We can easily accommodate this in the schedule by simply changing the duration, and the logic ripples through to the rest of the schedule, moving each dependent task on by 10 days, and that's very straightforward. As this is an approved change request rather than a variance, the baseline can also be updated to reflect this, and this is where we encounter some more limitations. Firstly, we'll try to update the baseline manually. So looking in the baseline duration field, we'll simply change the value from 15 to 25 days. Notice that the baseline end date hasn't moved as a result of this change, and the tracking Gantt is also unchanged. So we'll try to manually change the baseline end date as well, calculating what the increase of 10 days to the duration will do to this date. Now this task looks to be correct. In the tracking Gantt we can see it's been updated, but notice that none of the dependent tasks have been updated to reflect this change. To make this baseline change effectively using this method, we need to manually update every dependent task's start date, end date and duration, possibly even update the timescaled baseline values for those tasks, and that would be a hugely time-consuming manual process, and we're likely to make lots of errors when doing that. So we know that we can't manually update the baseline values to reflect this change. But we do still have options to automatically update the baseline, as Project did provide us with options when we initially set the baseline. So resetting the plan back to where it was before we tried to do the manual update, we can see we've still got that positive variance against the baseline, showing that we are performing well. To implement the change, we set the task duration from 15 days to 25 days. And then from the ribbon menu, we select Project, Set Baseline, and again, Set Baseline. The same dialog appears as before, and we've got the same options. We can baseline the entire project or selected tasks only. We know that we want to maintain the history of our performance for past tasks, so we only want to baseline the ongoing or future tasks that are impacted by this change. So I click Cancel, go back into the Gantt and select all ongoing or future tasks. Having done so, we go back into the ribbon menu and select Project, Set Baseline, and again Set Baseline. We'll choose to baseline selected tasks only and click OK. Going back to the schedule, we can now see that the tasks have been rebaselined. The new duration has been applied and our schedule and baseline dates are now perfectly aligned for those tasks. However, prior to setting the baseline for these tasks, we had a positive variance of 5 days, and that showed that the project was performing well. We were on target to deliver ahead of schedule. Our worst case scenario, if the project faced issues later on, we had 5 days contingency to call upon without impacting the project delivery date. But because we rebaselined the tasks, that variance is now gone and we've lost sight of the fact that we're ahead of schedule. If we were to hit a 3-day delay now, it would look as though we were performing poorly, when in actual fact we should still be showing 2 days ahead of schedule, even with this 3-day delay. So between this video and the previous video, we've shown some of the limitations of the Microsoft Project baseline functionality. Firstly, Microsoft Project only has 11 baseline repositories, the default baseline and baseline 1 through to baseline 10. Secondly, it's not possible to secure the baseline data in the Microsoft Project file, and that leaves it vulnerable to accidental or unauthorized changes by anyone who has edit permission on the schedule. And finally, when making baseline changes, Microsoft Project doesn't apply schedule logic to the baseline. And that means when you're processing a change request, you can't distinguish between the authorized change and any variances that may have existed on the project previously. In the next video, we'll look at how the free version of Eversight for Microsoft Project can provide solutions to all three of these limitations.